microphone, but it's 6:30 by my watch, so we'll deem the meeting to be starting on time. Welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny Committee of Melbourne Borough Council. Unfortunately, we're unable to live stream meetings still. I understand that strenuous efforts are being made to try and get this problem resolved, but tonight we won't be live on YouTube, but we will be using the audio visual system to record the meeting, and it will be posted online fairly soon after we've had the meeting tonight. And people do watch YouTube. I've had quite a few comments about the council meeting that we had only last week. So I would remind people, don't let your guard down. I'm not mentioning anyone in particular, because everything you say will be recorded and may be appropriately referred to in due course. Members are asked to physically raise their hands in the usual way to indicate they wish to speak. Please switch your mobile phones to silent, and should you need to leave the room during the meeting, unless it's an emergency evacuation, when emergency exits should be used, please use the marked exit and entrance. I'll just provide a reminder of the evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by the emergency exit. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Should you need it, officers will be on hand to assist persons who require assistance. Although we don't actually have the public here, I think I'm obliged to remind you that there's legislation that allows the public to film, record or use social media at a council meeting, but it must not be disruptive to the good order of the meeting or include any filming or recording of the public area. Before I move on to the agenda, can I just remind you that this is an evening of two parts. We have the formal scrutiny meeting, which we've now commenced. I'm hoping that will conclude by around 6:30, at which point we'll take a short 7:30. I always throw something in to check if people are awake, just, and I'm glad to see that there was a high level of alertness over that. I'd hope to conclude that by around 7:30, and we'll take a short 5-minute break at that point just to reorganise, and then we'll move into the workshop session, which is going to be looking at local government reorganisation. So that's the format for tonight. Apologies for moving to the agenda proper. Apologies for absence. I believe we have apologies from Councillor Chubb and Councillor Sharp. But there are no other. I think everyone else is in attendance. So thank you for the good turnout tonight. Item 2 on the agenda is to confirm the minutes of the scrutiny meeting held on the 29th of April 2025. Before I move to confirming acceptance of the minutes, are there any comments about the minutes? Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, it's on page 6 and it's the 5th paragraph down. If I just read it through quickly and you'll see what I mean. Concern was raised regarding people inheriting the right to live in a council-owned property whilst owning a private property, either for themselves or to rent out. Others clarified that what they can do in that situation is monitor the property to assess whether it is being lived in. Now, this is where the point I'm going to make. It was recognised that for some people, they are emotionally tied to the property and that it is difficult to let go. The Scrutiny Committee were informed of the succession rules. Well, it was two things conflated here, I'm afraid, because that first part was different, but the last two sentences should be in a different paragraph, and it should be to do with families living in a council property for many years and their parents die or what have you, should be able to inherit the right to carry on living there, especially if they were born there, because of the emotional and community attachment. Then you can add the next two paragraphs. It was recognised that for some people, they are emotionally tied to the property and that it is difficult to let it go. The Scrutiny Committee were informed of the succession rules. So there should be two paragraphs there Once for the one.
With respect, Councillor Gordon, what you've just read out regarding the right of succession of children of parents who died is not correct. There is no necessarily any right of succession for children living in a property.
No. What? Because,
And I don't recall that being raised at the meeting.
Yeah, I raised it. Yeah, and I know they said the succession rights, which was, they explained why with the succession rules. They did explain why they can't always do that. It's to do with the succession rules. So really, that explained it. But I did say that. I did. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll ask if anyone else has a recollection, but I am concerned that what you just read out, I think, would be inappropriate to add to the minutes because it suggests something that is not the case. So if we were to, if it was agreed that there was, forgive me, I need to sort of rule on this. If it was agreed to amend the minutes, it would have to be along the lines of Councillor Gordon argued that should be the case, but it isn't the case. So I don't think I think we've got to be very careful about changing the minutes in the way you're suggesting. Sorry, forgive me. Councillor Thwaites indicated he wanted to speak.
Yes, sorry, because I was the person that actually raised that issue, and the issue I raised it over was where there was a council tenant who was no longer, well, we weren't sure whether he was actually living in that house anymore, which was his parents' house. And he was also living in another building. So that was the issue that I raised. And I had a subsequent email from Michelle Howard afterwards. That was my understanding of that part of the minutes, in the fact that we were talking about that issue, not the issue that the right of yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, I wasn't a councillor then, but I just thought perhaps people would like to know something. I have somebody work for an elderly chap who's doing some painting for me, and it says here about B&Bs and things like that. Now, this didn't actually relate to that, but I would like people to know that this particular man has a son who's living at Mist Lodge, and he's paying £28 a month. If he gets a job, which he's quite capable of doing, he pays £1,200 a month. I just thought that's something we all ought to know about. Hope you don't mind me bringing that up at this time.
Yeah, because I can also remember bringing up the subject of some years back, going back a long, long time, when somebody's parents died, and he was about in his 40s and that, and he was told that he couldn't possibly have the council house, and there was uproar because a lot of the people living around him really protested about it so that he could stay in that house because he was part of that community. And it was such a shame to uproot him after all the years. I think he was even born in that house. I think he did manage to live there in the end, but it did cause a lot of controversy. And I did bring that up as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Councillor Gordon, but I'm going to return to the point I made that the rules of succession do not allow the inheritance of a tenancy by the children of parents who were the original tenants. That is the current position. The only circumstance in which that can arise is where there's a single parent, or only one of the parents was a tenant, and there can be one succession to the tenancy. In the normal circumstances, unless there's a tragedy in which both parents die simultaneously, is that there is one succession, which is from one spouse to the other, and after that there is no right to succession under the succession policy. And I think it's very important that official minutes of the council did not suggest otherwise. So if you want to suggest an amendment to reflect your views on that, I'm open to hearing that, but not to write into the record something that's not correct.
Yeah, she did explain it when it was informed of the succession rules, but it just doesn't sit, that paragraph by itself with both of that in, doesn't really, it's a bit confusing. It's a bit confusing. And I thought it would be better for that last two sentences to have to have what it was about, even though they explained what it was for the succession rules. It's not to say that it can happen, but they said that the scrutiny committee were informed of the succession rules. So it's not necessarily saying that we do that, but it's giving the explanation of it for those last two sentences, because it doesn't seem to go with the rest of the paragraph. It seems confusing without the explanation.
I'd have to say my view is that it would become more confusing if we included information that's not correct. I'm going to ask the committee actually whether or not they wish to accept an amendment along the lines Councillor Gordon has suggested. So Councillor Lumley is in support. Those who support the amendment, please show. Those who don't support the amendment, please show. So that's 2-2. So, but I'll vote not to support the amendment because for the reasons I've stated. I understand what you're saying, but I just think it's important that the official, someone comes to read those minutes at a later date. I think what you're suggesting is going to give an impression that could only lead to more confusion. But thank you for raising the matter. Are there any other issues regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Okay. Can I ask, therefore, for a proposer to accept the minutes? Councillor Thwaites, and a seconder? Councillor Cliff. Those in favour of accepting the minutes? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay. Yes, of course. I think it might need to be a standing item to record votes on issues like this. Okay, thank you. The minutes are therefore confirmed, and I will sign them. Okay. Right, I hadn't anticipated minutes being such a lengthy item, but we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the response tracker. I wonder either if you just wanted to update us on the response tracker.
Yeah. So yes, at the last meeting, a query was raised regarding the voids at St John's Court. I think it was you, Councillor Lumley, who raised that. Now, the Assistant Director for Housing Quality Development and Landlord Services did provide a response. I believe, did you get? You got a response, yeah. I can't remember if I just sent it out to yourself or whether I sent it out to the whole committee. I can't recall, but yeah. So yeah, so it was based on obviously your information that you provided, and then obviously the assistant director provided the official response, and that's all I've got to say on that.
Are you happy with the response that's set out there, Councillor Lumley?
Yes, Chair. I think Michelle Howard, she did give a response at the last scrutiny committee meeting about it anyway, which I was happy about. I've got another question I can ask when you're ready, Chair, about something else.
If it's about something else, it's not under this item. Yeah. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest that any members of the committee need to make regarding tonight's business? Councillor Webster.
Hi, if there's anything to do with involves the Mount Mowbray Town Estate or cattle market development, I might have to not be part of that.
Well, I mean, both items could be referred to under the leader's presentation, but yeah, thank you. I think we just record that you've got some involvement there. Yeah. I don't anticipate there'll be a need for you to leave the room. Again, I mean, I'll take guidance, but I would anticipate, thank you for that, but I don't think it would require you to exclude yourself from the meeting. Yeah. Any other declarations? Keep switching the microphone off when I'm about to speak. Right, the next item is review of the forward plan. And as is standard, the forward plan is attached to the agenda and it's open to any members of the committee if they want to raise any issues in respect of that document. Okay, I'll take that. Well, I don't know. Is that on the forward plan document, page 30? Yes, it will be on the forward plan. Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Do so.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could consider, it's on page 30, if we could consider the report on Phoenix House, because I thought that would be good to go through. And on page 31, report on the irrecoverable debts and also the Country Park Master Plan. If we could do those three, possibly.
So could you elaborate what you mean by do?
If we could sort of have a meeting about it, scrutinise it before it goes through to cabinet, scrutinise them, because I think it would be important to go through them, if possible.
Well, I mean, the work programme is the next item on the agenda because we've got an approved work programme or a proposed work programme for the coming year. And is already a fairly crowded agenda. So, I mean, obviously, when we come to that item, if you want to make proposals to amend the work programme to include additional items, you can do that. But it's for the committee to consider and ultimately for me as chair to determine whether that can be accommodated. But, so perhaps you want to come back on the next item. Any other comments on the forward plan? Councillor Holmes.
Page 7, procurement of food waste collection vehicles. When we were at the workshop, it concerned me greatly about that. And I just, what concerns me probably the most is, are people going to use it? Are they going to the human waste? Not human waste. No, not human. No, sorry. No. No, we're not got the night soil, man. Apparently, it's very good on rhubarb. But I'm just concerned that people won't use it anyway, and we're paying. I know we're getting some money from DEFRA, but we're not getting it all. I just feel that we really ought to go into this more. So, thank you.
Well, I mean, I think I'm going to say on that one, Councillor Holmes. I mean, obviously, we had the workshop, and I've just actually been passed the detailed notes. Well, forgive me if I didn't interrupt you. We had the workshop, but also whether people will use it or not is I'm afraid, a bit by the by, because this is a new legal requirement that we are, obliged to implement. I think we could all have views about compliance in much the same way as we have views about whether people fully comply with the requirement to recycle. And we've had recycling for years. So I understand what you're saying and the concerns, and I don't think the matter is yet, a done thing. But we've just had a detailed workshop on food waste, so I don't think, and I think those concerns were raised during that. So I think we understand the problem, but I don't think we can, not proceed with implementing food waste collection because we've got a statutory obligation to do so. I understand. I think I think the costs are concerning everybody, and whether we'll be fully funded for that. But I think the simple fact is, in order to carry out that statutory function, we are going to need to purchase the vehicles that enable us to do so. But thanks for the comment. I think it's useful. The comments on the forward plan before we move to the work programme. Okay, thank you. Now, before I invite comments on the work programme, and it's been circulated, it's based on the workshop that we've already had to look at issues for the coming year, and it's quite a crowded and full programme, as it always is. Just to mention one issue, and it actually relates back to the forward plan, forgive me. One of the issues I picked up in advance of the meeting was that we had scheduled for November a review of older persons services, specifically so Scrutiny could carry out its function of looking at new policy areas and have an opportunity to look at the report on that before it went to Cabinet for decision. But when you looked at the forward plan, the Cabinet decision was going to be in September. So, they didn't quite match up. But I've talked to the officers, and the proposal now is that we'll have information to make this work, I think, quite well, to have a workshop on that on the 17th of July, and then to further consider it at our committee meeting on the 23rd of September. And Cabinet now will be looking at it, making recommendations and decisions at its October meeting rather than its September meeting. So it all lines up now, and we'll have a good opportunity to look at this important area before any decisions are taken. So that's my only comment. The work programme is in front of you. I'll make the normal comment that what's set out fills our year pretty well. So if there are suggestions or proposals to add or amend the work programme, I hope you will bring them forward with proposals as to what on the current recommendations you would wish to delete or remove or delay, because I don't think we can just crowd things into the work programme and hope we can deal with them all, because as we found in the last year, it was quite tight at times to actually deliver on what we'd already committed to. So before I come to you, Councillor Gordon, I know you'll want to. Are there any other members of the committee who want to comment on the work programme? Thank you.
I've got two items. Number one, I want to ask a question, if it's all right, which will hopefully trigger a response tracker response. Is just regarding the extraordinary full council meeting last Thursday, Councillor Holmes asked the question about car parking prices, whether they could have been reverted back to the old ones over the period instead of having to cancel them in its entirety. Just going to, in very similar to sort of like taxi licensing, when taxi drivers and councillors can't agree on a revised taxi fare tariffs, they go back to the existing ones until they can come to a decision. Just so asking that based on that question that Councillor Holmes asked, whether that could have been the same policy for car parking. So that's, if I could have an answer to that now. If not, I don't mind waiting, next committee meeting, whatever. Second item, regarding my obviously sort of like asset maintenance, can I just clarify, can I include updates for the new like car parking machines as part of that, and also bus shelters, and not just about sort of all the things that need to be all sort of like repaired as potholes, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lumley. I mean, I'm sure we can feed in. I can see Lydia's looking to comment, but in terms of the car parking machines and the view that was expressed last week, I mean, I believe a response has been given, which is that proper consideration was given to doing exactly that. but it would have required the machines to be recalibrated again, and the actual cost effectiveness of doing that. Although obviously we were losing income because of the situation that arose, it actually would not have. It couldn't have been done immediately, and it would have incurred a cost. So the decision was taken to stick with simply sealing off the machines for the 3-week period. But I'm sure we can put something fuller into the tracker response, Adam, so that's fully. If I've missed anything in that, but I think we'd already had some response on that. On the other issue, can I ask Lydia to maybe comment?
Yeah, you are absolutely right with the car parking machines. It's that it was both the time frame and the cost was prohibitive. Okay. In relation to the planned maintenance programme, I can confirm you will be receiving an invitation to join the Councillor Cox's portfolio holder meeting, where we will go through that, and it includes the car parking machines. And what was the other thing you mentioned? Sorry. And the bus shelters. Yeah, I actually had a meeting with Leicestershire County Council yesterday, so that will be part of that update.
I mean, I think it's also important. I mean, and it's difficult at times because there's so many strands of activity going on within the authority. I mean, we've got our asset management progress report as a one-off item for March of next year. So it's in the work programme. But of course, we also have the portfolio holder group. So I think our session on that will be an opportunity to see what progress has been made over the course of that period, including through the portfolio group, which I know you're going to be involved in. So I think we are covered on that one.
Mr. Chairman, bus shelters, have we still got the ones that were given to us some years ago?
We have 4 on our asset list
that were given to. Yeah,
I don't know the history.
Yeah, there were.
I do
there
have
were.
a list.
Yeah,
There's 4.
and I just didn't know whether there was still viable. Whether they were okay still. But I know they were given by a company. Yeah.
I can provide a brief update. So yesterday I met with Leicestershire County Council, and we've reviewed the bus shelters in the town centre, and I'll provide a note of the update of that meeting. There is some external funding through Leicestershire County Council to replace or repair and renew certain bus shelters. So that will be part of that programme of renewal.
Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, I don't want to have anything amended or anything, because as you said, it's quite full. But if there's any leeway or any gaps anywhere, which I'm hoping there might be, if I could just say page 30 to consider the report on Phoenix House, page 31 report on irrecoverable debts, and also the Country Park Master Plan, only if we can fit it in, because I don't want to make any amendments, because I know there's a lot of important things already on there.
Can I say on the middle one, on recoverable debts, I think that most probably, and I'm sure will be part of the work programme, is an audit and standards issue more than a scrutiny issue at this stage. And I'm sure it will be covered in the work of that committee, because it's part of the regular reporting that comes to audit and standards anyway. So I think that one will get picked up. In terms of the Phoenix House, I mean, Phoenix House, and I'm stretching the balloon a bit here, is part of the whole asset management, asset development plan. So I think we will have opportunities to discuss that, but I think it also then conflates into other issues like the GP surgery, etc., which we're going to get updates on in due course. So I don't think it would get lost as an issue, is what I'm saying. So I think there's, without putting in a specific item in just about Phoenix House, I think there's opportunities. Ed, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, just I think many of the things Councillor Gordon has said, I think, will fall within the scope of existing things in your work plan. So you already have the asset development programme as part of that. Phoenix House will be part of that. So that's on your work programme. You also have a review of the BIFA contract. And obviously we are in contract variation discussions with BIFA right now around the food waste process. So that will pick up the earlier point that was made as well. And there is also an item on your work plan around pride of place, which potentially could draw in some elements of the country park, not exclusively, but that's about that broader environmental agenda. So I think some of the things you referred to, Councillor Gordon, naturally could be part of considerations at that time. And I think to your point, Chair, around the specifics of the item that's going to Cabinet, that's about individual issues and write-offs, which isn't really a matter for scrutiny. The way in which the council manages debt more generally in terms of policy and approach would be if the committee were minded to look at it. The committee did look at it, I think, a year or two ago, maybe perhaps 18 months ago. Debt management was an item that was considered. It would be legitimate if you wish to consider it again. You might wish to add it to your pending items for future consideration. So that's a matter for yourselves.
Thanks for that. I think that was really helpful. I'll go back to the comment I made a few moments ago. I mean, one of the issues is that a lot of these matters will flow into broader issues. So I don't think we'll lose the opportunity during the course of our work. But I mean, I thank you for that. You did start off by saying you didn't want to amend the programme because, you know, I keep scrolling back up and down the programme thinking this is a lot already. But that doesn't mean we can't change. And of course, when it comes to November, we'll have our mid-year review of the scrutiny programme. And of course, who knows what might have happened between now and then that would lead us to think we need to give other priorities. So nothing will get lost. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments about the work programme specifically? Councillor?
I promise. It's just I thought we're probably jumping a gun a bit about the country park because there's things happening, aren't there, in that area, building and what have you. So isn't it going to be an ongoing thing, really?
Well, for the rest of my lifetime, I suspect, Councillor Holmes, yes. This could be a long time, may not be, who knows? Depends how stressful these meetings get. But yeah, I think you're right. It's not going to be over and done within the course of the coming 12 months, that's for sure. Right, any other comments on the work programme? Okay, so I don't think we have to make a decision because I indicated earlier, ultimately the decision is mine, but as always, I want the opportunity to be there for all the committees to be part of this process. Can I move on to item 7 then? And we do have to actually make a decision on this, i.e. to approve the annual report, scrutiny annual report, and to recommend the report to council. Now, I don't want to say a great deal about the report. It's been circulated with the agenda. I'd like to thank Adam in particular for putting the report together. Both myself and Alan as chair and vice chair did have an opportunity to look at it and were consulted over it. And I think it's a testament to the work that was done that we only made a couple of minor observations. So I want to commend the report to you. I think the only thing that struck me in going through it is how well it reflects the roles of scrutiny. Scrutiny is not just about identifying particular items we want to hone in on because we have concerns over them. It's also about contributing towards policy development within this council. And I think the real benefit of the work we've done over the last year in a number of areas is it's been adding those extra heads to the process of kicking around some very important issues. And I think and hope that helps Cabinet as the executive and decision maker in the council. And I might make the side observation that if government was a bit more inclined towards that way of developing policy, it might not get itself into some of the messes it has. So I think the report's a testament to the work of all the members of the committee over the last year, both in formal meetings and in the various workshops and task groups that we've set up. But that's all I want to say about the report. Obviously, if members have any comments about it or issues they think we've missed, please speak up now. I'll take that as a no. So can I have a proposer to approve the annual report? Councillor Thwaites, seconder to approve the annual report. Councillor Lumley. Those in favour of approving the report? Thank you. Any abstentions? One abstention from Councillor Pritchett. Otherwise, that is approved. And the second recommendation is to that we recommend the report to council. Could I just take a straightforward vote on that? I'll give you the proposer and seconder. Those in favour of recommending the report to council? Okay. Any against? Abstentions? Cool. that was unanimous. I thought you put both hands up to hedge your bets there, Councillor Pritchard. Okay, thank you, committee. Right. Now, I'm probably now going to prove to be optimistic in saying that I thought we'd conclude the first half of the meeting by 7:30, but it's all in the hands of the leader now. This is the leader's annual presentation. As you know, as a committee, it's part of our annual cycle that the leader makes a presentation to this committee, and it's an opportunity for us to question him on the issues he raises and any other issues that are appropriate to that. So over to you, leader.
Thank you, Chair, and it's a pleasure to be here. Members will be aware that this annual statement is delayed because of the county council elections, and this statement and what I'm reading out now and the presentations on the screen will be available to all members after this evening, and I think the Chair and Vice Chair have already had the visual presentation. Now, I've been asked to focus attention mainly through the prism of the council's corporate plan, and the Constitution sets out clearly my role, and this was largely unchanged by amendments we agreed at annual meeting and the portfolios confirmed subsequently. As promised at the annual meeting, I will not repeat my general report to the council, and I will cover briefly the first three strategic project deliveries that you see on the screen, but most of the devolution and LGR will be covered in your workshop later this evening. Now I can press this button now, can't I? Do I have to point anywhere? It's splendid. Okay. The corporate plan draws together all the mandatory services we must provide, discretionary services, including those which are not mandatory, but like Waterfield, have been absorbed into the DNA of local government. The plan includes all those areas where we seek to add value to our place and for our residents by working with other agencies and by levering in funding and resources which are not available via our local tax base. Importantly, the plan provides a framework and a reference point for officers and members for all policies and action plans. There we go. So now this slide and the next one are a very sort of broad overview of performance. Now, responsibility for monitoring the various measures of performance falls to the Deputy Leader, Councillor Margaret Glancy, and these two slides capture and summarise the overall picture for 24-25. And the next three slides will offer a few examples of progress on delivery. So I'll just go to the second one of this pair. There we are. So if you need me to go back, Chair, we can go back. And may I say, just while you're trying to absorb that, as I said at full council, all members of the council are very welcome to come to Cabinet under the Constitution to ask questions and indeed to submit one-page memorandums on anything you want to, and we will pick up whatever you are concerned about as part of our normal deliberations. So I'm going to move swiftly on because of time. We go. Are you pressing buttons or am I? Right. So I've got three slides here which show examples of progress on delivery. I think they represent some real progress. There are 3 emissions from the slides. I'll just the next one up. There we go. And the 3 emissions I'll just talk about as you're reading that. First, there was a huge amount of work being undertaken by our Safer Communities housing and legal teams in dealing with aggravated antisocial behaviour and criminality in collaboration with our police service. Secondly, I have provided a short additional statement on MMDR South, which will be with the documents that are circulated to you after the meeting. And it's with respect to the sustainable neighbourhood and also the local plan, which some members will have seen if they serve on the local plan working group. Thirdly, there's another area of work that's not on the slides. I've also attached a snapshot of planning statistics for the year, and I also wish to mention that the planning productivity assessment is now fully underway, although this has really been beefed up in this current year and doesn't really sit substantially in the previous year. I'll just pop up the other slide. Is it going? Yeah. Oh, no. I'll just go back. Right. Did you see that one? I can't remember. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on, Chair, if I may. The next slide refers specifically to UKSPF, and there will now be a short video. Do I have to press something or do that? There we go. Thank you, Chair. I think that's if it's not available on the members' bulletin board, it certainly will be. Are we going around again? Don't start me. Don't shock me. A couple of characteristics there. We've used all the money, which is not every authority has achieved that. We've spread it across town and rural communities. We penetrated into farming community, a great variety of things. We've been helped by ensuring that all grant applications were fairly assessed and adjudicated on by utilising people from the Chamber of Commerce and other places. The NFU were involved as well. So it's been a really good community vibe, if I can put it that way. And I think looking forward to local government reform and some of the nested requirements there, this is the model that we can take forward to ensure that the communities stay as communities. And I'm very grateful to the staff that have been involved at the granular level, out with people and listening to people and trying to do things for them. So a big thank you for that. So, Chair, I will move on quickly. I'm on to the stockyard now. This is, I call it the stockyard development and theatre proposition. Members will recall that this project has progressed with cross-party agreement and that the cross pressures have been contained by refining the overall scheme and a small amount of additional match funding secured initially by borrowing with the reasonable prospect of capital receipts to cover it. There has been no reduction in the scale of the scheme. Following withdrawal from Rutland and Melton, from the LUF programme by the Melton and Brooksby FE College, we have also secured the approximately £2 million grant for use on Site D for refurbishing and repurposing the covered general market area into an event space with an emphasis on performing arts. That's when it's not being a market, I hasten to add. So not on Tuesdays. The whole programme management regime has been subject to audit and checks, because of course this is a collaborative project with Rutland and all contracts have been subject to procurement rules, and before a fixed price commercial contract is signed and spades are actually in the ground, we're going through the full process of full diligence and legal checks are being progressed. So I'm moving on now. Am I moving on? Oh, here we go. Inward investment. On inward investment, there has been a great deal of activity involving a refocused and energised officer team, and I'm very grateful to Lydia, who's here tonight, for leading that. We've been engaging with owners of closed sites, local, national and international enterprises. Members will understand that the details are subject to conventions on commercial in confidence, but Councillor Sharon Brown and I are very pleased with the creative work being undertaken. Members are aware of the cooperation with Saint-Gobain to revive the closed Holwell works. When complete, this will secure skilled and semi-skilled employment using green energy, low carbon technology and producing vital material for the building industry. So it will add to the diversity of employment in this borough, and I'm really delighted with that one. So moving on. He tries to. Right, and this touches on something that was mentioned earlier. At the request of the ICB, the Integrated Commissioning Board, we have returned to the option of using part of Phoenix House, which they had previously dismissed in favour of Parkside. Members will understand that while we can and have committed resources to scoping and evaluating the technical feasibility and the financial viability of using sites which we own, the whole funding stream for works, commissioning and running costs falls to the NHS, its agencies and partners, not least to finding medical staff employed by independent GP practices. At the present moment, the ball is in the ICB court and we wait the outcome of the board's next meeting, which I believe is scheduled for August. It's a bit frustrating that I can't say any more at this stage, but needless to say, we are not sitting on our hands and forgetting about Phoenix House. We are looking at other channels of activity there. And I'm sure that Councillor Holmes will remember that we had a problem in Phoenix House when I first got on the council because of Legionnaires in the pipes, as we did at the swimming pool. But we've dealt with the swimming pool and we've coped with the situation at Phoenix House. Okay, right. So moving along now, nearly there, Chair. There we go. Devolution and LGR. The headlines are evident and the links to more detail on our joint submission in March is on the next slide, which the QR codes, I think they're called. And I know you'll be expanding on this in the workshop later. So I'm not proposing, I'll just show you the link to, there we go. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? For all you technophobes and technocrats. That's it, Chair. I've been as quick as I can. We'll take 6 minutes of questions.
Thank you. It'll be as long as I determine, and as long as the committee needs to. I mean, just a couple of comments. I mean, I was quite taken, which shows I was awake during the presentation, with equating the amount of food distributed through the rural food hub to 3 grand pianos. Having spent Saturday working with my youngest son, who's just bought a grand piano, about how it's going to the layout, and have a real appreciation of the size. I also, out of that, gained the right to tell him he could no longer call me a boomer who has all the money, as he just spent £45,000 on the piano. That's another story. The other thing, it's just a comment actually. The video that was shown, could it be shown in the reception instead of the picture of the leader that we constantly? But actually, it just struck me that sort of a rolling thing like that, because it was very, I thought, very impactful to see all these things, because we know stuff is happening, but we don't always see it, and the public don't always see it. So maybe that could be looked into. Okay, enough from me. I'll open it up to members of the committee. And I see Councillor Thwaites is in straight away. For any questions or observations they wish to raise regarding that presentation, or anything else for that matter.
I might as well go into the heart of it. And obviously, as a resident and as a councillor and all the rest of it, the second surgery is at the top of everybody's concern about happening. Are we convinced that we've done everything that we can do to actually facilitate this? And it's down to others, unfortunately, to bring that forward. Do we feel we've done everything we can possibly do?
Well, I think we have, really, and that goes across 2 administrations, because Joe and his team did a lot of work to try and get it at the sports village. It didn't really fly for a number of different reasons. I don't want to, disparage that now, because it was a laudable effort and it was legitimately put. It didn't quite cut the mustard, shall we say, in terms of hanging together in a financial sense. And we immediately thought, well, let's look at our own other buildings. Clearly, places like the Cove and other places were not appropriate, and it was the ICB that preferred this one. So we said, all right, if that's your choice, let's go for that. And we put a lot of effort into it ourselves. And then when this wasn't viable for them and the potential practice, they then said, can we go back and look at Phoenix House? And we said, yes, of course, but there has to be a limit. All we're doing is offering our property. And there is, as Councillor Holmes' predecessor was always saying, why can't they do it at the hospital? But that's not within our gift. It's very frustrating. We badgered 2 different MPs, Alicia and Ed on this, and the Secretary of State. I don't think it's been helped by the fact that the ICB is itself going through a vast reorganisation now. And I think that's the current hiccup. Officers have worked very hard on this. I know they have. But we will keep going. We'll keep bashing away at it. If there are other sites that come up, even if they're not ours, and we can facilitate discussions, we will do. I mean, we've had discussions ourselves with GP practices at Bottisford and in this town to see what they can offer, but they have to operate through the ICB. We can't, make it happen. But we are working as hard as we can as a local authority to do it.
Okay, Councillor Pritchard.
Leader, thank you very much for an excellent user focused report. Very good. Just a few questions. The grants, it's been very good. I've been part of the panel awarding both the business and the community grants. And for a number of years, it's been hugely frustrating and disappointing that as a small council, we don't have all the money goes on staff costs and there's not the grant money there. And it can achieve so much when it comes together with the money being put in by organisations. In an ideal situation, I'd like to see the grant availability carried forward in an ideal world. Thank you. Now, the second point is that the Bottisford building, we're at risk of having 700 houses. When the local plan was done, the planning applications then came in. The small council didn't have a growth board. Rushcliffe has had a growth board for all the places where there's going to be involving the water people, the county council, pulling everything together, and we haven't had that. And now we've got certain consequences of this that the parish councils having to and ward councils having to wrestle with. And one of them, cutting to the point at the moment, is safer communities. We're meeting again, periodic meeting, Councillor Mason and I, with the police, and we do have issues. We're growing and we've got issues of behaviour. So it's not just in Melton where there needs to be response, and it's not necessarily this council's response. There's a number of organisations involved on that one. The next one is the town centre. We only have one large place, unlike South Kesteven, that's got 2, 3 or 4 to consider, and so it's quite appropriate that the focus is on the Melton. And the point I want to make here that I've made with at a meeting with Lydia is that we need to get a bang for the money put in. Town centres are used not just for the economy, people come in for services, social reasons, but we need to get a bang out of it. There really needs to be an economic benefit. Each individual business has a responsibility for their own marketing and how they manage it, collectively with the bid. And then we've got this tourism bit, and we really need to be seeing an economic benefit from the money that's going in. And then the final point is in inward investment. You mentioned the borough, not just the town. So I mean, this inward investment has come after the draft update of the local plan nominating certain employment sites near Melton and restricting it elsewhere. So could I have a few words about the inward investment and the borough, please?
As you know, Don, I'm passionately supportive of Bottisford on this particular point, and I referred to activities we're involved in at the pre-planning stage now, which I can't articulate in here because it's commercial in confidence, but I totally support the sentiment of what you're saying without unpacking the detail, and I'm sure that Lydia is listening to what you got to say. I can't change what's happened in the past, but I am trying to go forward on that. I do appreciate what you said about the town centre and those other things. I can't give you a playbook of things that we will do, but can I just reiterate that if you want to come and see us along with your colleague Councillor Mason to discuss this further, very happy to do so, and let's talk some detail. across the piece. You mentioned also antisocial behaviour. Now, before that, you said let's have more grants and not so much on staff. But of course, the antisocial behaviour that I mentioned earlier is handled by 4 members of staff across the whole borough, and they do a really cracking good job. I suppose if we employed 2 more people, we could send them up to Bottisford, but we wouldn't have so much money for grants then, would we? Or potholes in some Lumley's ward. So it's a challenging time, but we'll keep going. I can assure you. You know that, don't you? Really.
Councillor Lumley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points. Yeah, firstly, thank you to the leader for excellent presentation. Very, very good presentation, and the sound music was very good. Just on Phoenix House, obviously, I've attended, I think, pretty much every asset development meeting. I'm just a bit concerned. By the way, I'm pleased it's going to Phoenix House, that proposal, because I've personally said that in the meetings previously. And I think other councillors did. I think that's the best place for it. Second GP surgery. I'm just a bit concerned though with the NHS when they said to us at the time, you know, when after the election, where they were saying that their actual IT systems were not compatible at Phoenix House or Thorpe Road Hospital, only at these council offices. And so all of a sudden now they're saying, oh, actually we are able to go to Phoenix House. So I'm a bit bizarre that NHS are actually telling us the truth and they're not sort of trying to make us go into one area. Even so, I'm pleased we are now going to Phoenix House. I'm just concerned that that you know, they are giving us false information sometimes. Just on, can we just go back to the presentation earlier on? Just it's earlier on, and there was like a table of green, amber, and red projects that were in line. Can I just ask why that one in the red? Can we have a bit more info? Yeah, that one. Can we have a bit more information on why those ones in the red are not underway? Thank you.
Can't do that off the top of my head, but we can certainly give you the committee a written response. Unless Ed, you want to add anything specifically?
Sorry, yeah, Chair. Yeah, I think probably best if we provide an update after the meeting. I asked the same question when I saw the report as well, just to understand it. So, and we track it. So all the information in this is tracked through the updates that go to Cabinet on a regular basis. So there is a spreadsheet that sits above this with the specific action, an update against it, a deadline, and a timescale. So, but yeah, we'll be able to provide those 5 items very soon after the meeting. So happy to do that, Chair.
I mean, presumably the detail behind that is reported elsewhere. You know, it's just this is a summary of the total numbers. So Councillor Holmes was indicating earlier.
First of all, on Tuesday, I think it was, there was a meeting arranged by Melton Council employees for, and it was at Fernley Ice Creams. Yeah, my cousin happens to be Mr. Fernley Ice Cream. So, and he said to me, he thought how well it had gone. He thought that the staff were excellent. And he said, you know, you just want to go and tell them how good the meeting was and how it was really constructive and helped an awful lot of people in the rural areas. And I thought that was something that I'd like to bring up. Yeah, did you want to say something?
Thank you very much. And we've got a big freezer. If you can arrange for any ice cream to come up, I'll make certain the staff get it.
I'll tell him. The other thing was the doctor's surgery, regardless wherever it might be. I talked to Alicia and I've talked to Ed and is it really staffing these surgeries? Because it's getting the doctors to actually come to the surgeries, you know, that a new surgery. And I don't know how, I have no idea how to make it happen, but there is that great problem, I understand.
It's outside of our ken, really. It's a national thing. And it is true that there aren't enough people filling the jobs. And I find it very frustrating. 3 years ago, I had a boy in my street who had grade A levels. He wanted to be a doctor and he couldn't get a medical place to study because there weren't enough places to study. Another boy managed to get through, and I know them both very well. So it's a national problem, and it's outside the scope of this council. All we can do is push and push and push for the fact that we do need more doctors and we do need another surgery. It's two sides of the same coin, as far as I'm concerned.
Say one thing, I had to unfortunately hit a fortnight ago on a Saturday, I had to go to Grantham Hospital because somebody had cut my foot, and it's all a bit unfortunate. But at Grantham Hospital, it's now 24 hours a day. On a Saturday, they were amazing. Didn't have to wait. They were absolutely fantastic. Had to have bloods taken. We had to wait a little while for the bloods, but absolutely fantastic. I think everybody ought to push it a bit more because lots of people think it only goes on for 12 hours a day, but it's not 24 hours.
Excellent. Councillor Gordon. I'm getting old. It's just on the GP surgery. I do sometimes wonder. I mean, and we're all those of us who are in political parties have been banging on, in election after election, we'll campaign, and I think that's translated into a sense in the community out there that it's down to us to deliver a doctor's surgery. And I think it's quite right that we get some clarity into that process that this council has, and I've seen it, from the outside and the inside, the amount of work that's gone in trying to facilitate this, but that's all we are, facilitators, and it's down to the NHS, and I think that message needs a bit more clarity out there. Sorry, Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, I think the question I was going to ask has already been asked by Councillor Holmes, and it has been answered. It's really just all I wanted to say was, would Melton Borough Council agree to work with ICB where they can to encourage doctors to come here, really, just to see if there's anything that Melton Borough Council could do to help the situation?
Well, we do work with them, and I mean, Councillor Pritchett knows that I've spoken to doctors direct myself to try to tease out ideas. We're not going to leave any stone unturned within our legal abilities. I have three specific points I always make. Is it legal? Have we got the money? And is it practical? And if we could tick those three boxes, we're halfway through to getting a proper policy on anything, really. So within the bounds of legality and our budget, yes, we will keep trying.
Yeah, wonderful. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be as brief as possible. Scrutiny doesn't have to just focus on the council's involvement in anything. You could actually include the future planning of health services for Melton. And it might be well appropriate while there's a load of flux going on with ICBs if the NHS is not in a position to do it. And just to finish off on that point, I was one of the councillors involved in campaigning for the out of hours at Grantham, part of the pressure group and on the picket line, and in part of the design team, that 16 that contributed to that. And there's many people from Melton that go there. Then finally, on the red points that Simon raised that you're going to look into, each of those points themselves don't have to be major. They could be high, medium or low just because they're in the red there themselves. So that's what the point that I noted from that.
Yes,
Can I just,
Councillor? Oh, sorry.
Can I just point out that the County Council has a Health Scrutiny Committee, and that's the primary venue for bringing the health service to account. I know when I chaired a district scrutiny committee, we did get other people in. We got the post office in when they were shutting branch post offices in villages. So you're quite right. You're not just focused on this council, but on the place that we live in.
just very briefly responding to Councillor Pritchard's point, that's spot on. I think what this slide seeks to do is to give assurance that on the vast majority of the commitments we've made, there is progress. The ones that haven't progressed, we'll provide details on and an explanation as to why not. And it may be a choice that we've made deliberately because it's a lower priority and not something that needs to be resourced whilst there's other things that are more important. So yeah, we'll unpack that for you as a follow-up.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, we have had representatives of the health service here before. I think about 18 months ago, they attended one of our meetings, and I can't remember the, I don't know whether Adam can, the particular health policy that was being rolled out at the time, but it was an opportunity for us to input. And the thought has already crossed a number of minds that whilst we can't compel outside representatives, outside bodies to attend scrutiny, we can invite them. And of course, and I'm sorry if I was taking my eye off the committee members, but in November, we're actually looking at the business case for the GP surgery, and that might be an opportunity. And that's already been thought of, that we could invite the ICB to come along and be part of that. As the leader says, every avenue that we can try and open up to facilitate the coming of a second surgery, we will look at as a council, won't we? Any other? Oh, shall I just wait 1 sec? Anybody who hasn't yet raised anything wish to raise anything? Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, if we could all have an update as well on that amber column underway and off track as well, just to that actually could be more important than the one in red, actually, for lots of reasons. Just another point as well, just because it's been mentioned by Councillor Pritchard and Councillor Ornett, the leader. Is it just to clarify that, I think because we heard last week of the whole of the hospital being shut to new people being born for a time. I know this happened with the whole of the Grantham Hospital a few years back, where they said it was only for a temporary period. A&E would be temporarily suspending it, and it never came back, as far as I'm aware. And it was reduced. It's back to 24 hours, isn't it? But it was temporarily not 24 hours. It'd be good to have a catch up with the health officers, NHS local officers, about that, because Councillor Cliff did do a huge amount of work to try to advocate to save that unit. And also clarification on the GP surgery. So I think a health scrutiny agenda item would be really good, like Councillor Bridges said, like to try and get others in to talk about it. Thank you.
The option of inviting, as I said, is there. So I couldn't help. I think I misheard you there for a moment, that they were cancelling all births in Melton for the next 6 months. It's not quite as simple as that, but the birth centre is closing for 6 months. Any other questions people want to raise of the leader? Okay, well, I think you've got off quite lightly this year, leader. If there are no further questions, I'll move on to the last item on the agenda, which is urgent business. There is no urgent business, because I've not been notified of any in advance of the meeting. So I'll declare this part of the meeting closed. And as I indicated earlier, we'll now take a 5-minute break, and then we'll move into the workshop session.